QQQM, VGT and SCHG are three of the greatest growth ETFs out there, and today we're going to compare them and see which ETF wins the crown as the best growth ETF. My name is Rick, your Italian investor and twin of Mano Ginobili, and today's comparison will be based on strategy, diversification and performance. Let's start by showing you the table that we're going to use today. For every ETF, we're going to compare the strategy and the underlying index, the dividend yield, the expense ratio, and above all, we're going to focus on diversification and performance. For diversification, we're going to focus on the number of holdings, the weight of the tech sector, and the top 10 holdings, while for performance, we're going to see the performance of the last 20, 10, and 5 years. In the end, we're going to weigh these factors and come out with a grade, or a number of points, for each ETF. And by the way, I also compared other famous growth ETFs, but I'll show you those results at the end of the video. By changing the weight or importance that you want to give to strategy, diversification, and performance, you're going to be able to get a weighted result of what ETFs are the best for you. Because the truth is, there is not an absolute truth. The best ETF for you depends on what you're looking for and your risk tolerance. If you're interested in downloading this table for free, you just need to drop a like to this video, subscribe to the channel, and then use the link in the description below called ETFs Comparison Tool. So after you've done all of this, sit back, relax, and let's start with a strategy. The first ETF is QQQ or QQQM. QQQ and QQQM are exactly the same, so when I'm talking about one, I'm also talking about the other. The difference is that QQQM has a slightly lower expense ratio than QQQ with 0.15% instead of 0.2%, but it was created more recently. So when it comes to long-term performance, I'm gonna take the values of QQQ for reference. Now, QQQ, the Invesco QQQ Trust ETF, as well as QQQM, are based on the Nasdaq-100 Index, which tracks the 100 largest and most innovative companies listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange based on market capitalization, excluding financial companies. Information technology is the strongest sector in this ETF, but not the only one. And companies included must have a minimum average daily trading volume of 200,000 shares and have traded for at least 3 full calendar months. The second ETF is VGT. VGT is your number one choice if you want a pure technology ETF because it's one of the most diverse market cap weighted tech ETFs with a wonderful coverage of the whole tech industry, including large, mid-sized and small US tech companies. The expense ratio is 0.09% and the index tracked by VGT is the MSCI US IMI Information Technology 2550 Index, where 25/50 means no more than 25% of the total assets may be invested in one single company, and that if you take all the companies that have a higher weight than 5% respectively, their sum must not exceed 50% of the total assets. Summarizing, you have small, mid and large cap tech companies, and you have a cap on the weights to ensure that no holdings weigh too much. A good alternative of VGT is FTEC, the Fidelity MSCI Information Technology Index ETF, which is basically identical but has a slightly lower expense ratio with 0.08% instead of 0.09%. The reason why I'm taking VGT here is that FTEC has been created recently, so we don't have long-term performance data. Obviously, you can assume that FTEC, if it was created before, would have performed just like VGT. The last ETF is SCHG, which tracks the return of the Dow Jones US Large Cap Growth Total Stock Market Index. Inside, you'll find the 230 best and biggest growth companies within the parent index, the Dow Jones Total Stock Market Index. To classify a stock as growth, they use the 6 measures that you see here. 2 are projected, namely expected for the future, 2 are current, and 2 are historical. When it comes to strategy, I'm gonna give a grade between 1 and 5 to the ETFs. 5 being the highest and 1 the lowest. QQQM and SCHG, or better said, their underlying indexes, use a more sophisticated strategy to select the companies, so I'm going to give them 5 points. VGT has still a quite solid strategy, so it gets 4 points. Alright, let's take a look at diversification now. SCHG and VGT both have a higher number of holdings with 310 and 230 compared to the 101 of QQQM. When it comes to the weight of the tech sector, VGT is obviously at a disadvantage because it has no diversification at all. The whole ETF is based on tech, and the only reason why you don't see 100% here is that the ETF has little short-term reserve in a liquidity fund. If we compare QQQM and SCHG, both ETFs have a better diversification in terms of tech, and in particular, SCHG shines as the most diversified with 48.99% in tech compared to 59.49% of QQQM. The situation changes a little when we compare how the ETFs are diversified based on the concentration in the top 10 holdings. This is a really important factor factor to consider, because when you have an ETF that is overly concentrated in the first 10 holdings, this obviously can become a dangerous factor if some of these 10 companies were to perform badly. So seeing as how the ETFs are diversified, I would say that SCHG here is the most diversified, followed by QQQM and lastly by VGT. But we'll see the exact rates later on. Let's move now to performance. QQQ and VGT exist since more than 20 years. And this is a really useful information because we are not just basing our decision on the performance of a short period of time that could be misleading. SCHG, unfortunately, was created in 2009. But in order to have a yearly return for the last 20 years, I extrapolated the return between 2005 and 2009 from the other two ETFs. You can see right away that VGT and QQQM win in terms of performance. QQQ has been the one that managed the highest performance in the past 20 years, and when you have such a high performance for 20 long years, it's not a coincidence anymore. VGT follows with 13.11% per year in the last 20 and managed to perform better than QQQ in the last 10 and in the last 5. This is thanks to the fact that tech in the US made a huge jump in the last decade thanks to the incredible development that American companies had in this field. SCHG instead has a lower performance in all time frames. 16.46% in the past 5 years, 13.41% in past 10, and 11.8% in past 20. Now that we have all the information about the ETFs, we can grade the ETFs and see which one wins. It's important to note that there is not an absolute winner. And this is because every investor gives importance to different factors. For you, for example, past performance could be the most important thing. Another investor, maybe an older or a more conservative one, is less interested in performance and just wants more stability and less volatility. That's why in the table here, I added 3 cells, and you can input here the importance that you give to the 3 factors. In my personal case, I decided to give 40% importance or weight to diversification and to performance respectively, which automatically leaves 20% to strategy. Feel free to change it or play with it depending on your needs, and you'll see that the results will change. But be careful not to focus too much on one of the factors. So now you're starting to get a good impression of how these ETFs differ from each other. Some are more diversified, some instead are more focused on tech, and the past performance grows more or less the higher the focus on tech is. In the table, which again, you can download for free from the description below, I used a points method of grading that automatically gives a grade on diversification and performance based on the 3 diversification factors and on the 3 performance factors that we've seen before. Then, together with the grade that we've manually given to strategy, the table weights the grades based on what we decided here in the upper part of the table. Therefore, how important are diversification and performance for you? The result is a total final weight per ETF. So when you download this file, after dropping a like to this video and subscribing to the channel, in the future, you just have to update the diversification and performance values, and the table calculates the result for you automatically. My suggestion is just keep diversification and performance balanced. I know it's easy to want to give all the weight to performance, but remember that a higher past performance can also mean that the ETF has become more overpriced, not more valuable. So with the weight that I set here, QQQM comes out as a winner with 11.4 points, followed by SCHG as a close second with 12.2 points, and VGT in third position with 10.8. Now this table kind of confirms my opinion on QQQM. I believe it's really a wonderful ETF because it has the best balance between sector and company diversification, but also wonderful long-term performance. SCHG in second position showed lower past performance than the other two, but at the same time is the best diversified ETF among them. On one hand, because it doesn't only include tech companies, and on the other, because it's diversified in terms of number of holdings. VGT in third position is the ETF with the highest performance and the lowest diversification, mostly because it's only focused on tech. But I want to show you something, because I know that some of you have QQQ, some VGT, and some SCHG. So I want to reassure you that whatever ETF you have among them, you made a good choice. In fact, I included in the comparison also other important growth ETFs, namely VUG, VONG, XLK, and SPYG. And as you can see, the first 3 ETFs are much better than all the others. I want to mention 3 ETFs in particular that are really good ETFs, but I haven't mentioned them for specific reasons. One is QGRW, the Wisdom Tree US Quality Growth Fund, which is a great ETF, but I haven't included it because it was created in 2022. So we don't have much reference in terms of past performance. One is FELG, the Fidelity Enhanced Large Cap Growth ETF. Again, a really good ETF which was created in 2023. So again, I couldn't consider it here. And one is FTEC, the Fidelity MSCI Information Technology Index ETF, which I mentioned before and is a great alternative to VGT because it's pretty much the same but has a slightly lower expense ratio with 0.08% instead of 0.09%. To conclude the video, I want to show you what happens if I set more weight on diversification or performance. If I set, for example, 50% on diversification and 30% on performance, the winner becomes SCHG, followed by QQQ. If I do it the other way around, with 30% on diversification and 50% on performance, VGT wins instead. Notice that in all cases, these three ETFs are superior than all others. And this is what actually matters, because you can focus yourself on performance or diversification and you can't know the future in any case. But at least you know that by grading everything that we can grade, these three ETFs always come out as winners. So what I want to say is don't go crazy trying to make the perfect decision for your investments. Nobody knows if in the future VGT will perform better or QQQ will perform better. No matter what we say, we can't predict the future. But as investors, we can make weighted decisions and take all the factors into account that we have at our disposal. And remember, if you want to be successful in the long term, it's more about how you invest than where you invest. It's important to take advantage of periods like this one, where stocks are cheaper because of the Trump tariffs, and it's important to budget your expenses so that you have more to invest every month. Because in the end, small differences that you might have in the performance of the ETFs you choose, if you've chosen the right ones, are of secondary importance. If you want to play with this file, you'll find it in the description below for free, of course, as ETFs comparison tool. If I could give you any value with this video, drop a like to this video and write a comment with your favorite ETFs. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching until the end. I wish you a great day or evening. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Ciao!